Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Whole Family Approach Addressing Global Poverty webinar. The webinar will run for 1 hour, and we will conduct Q&A with our speakers in the last 15 to 20 minutes of the webinar. It will also be recorded for those that need to leave early or would like to share this content with other colleagues. Please note that as participants, you are muted. If you wish to ask a question, please use the raise your hand icon on your screen. If you wish to be audible for your question, you must log in using your audio PIN number. Otherwise, you can submit a question through the message box on the screen, and we will review it and share at the end.
Hello, this is Lori Severens with Ascend at the Aspen Institute. We are delighted to be sharing this content in this webinar with all of you. We're really excited about the work that we've been doing in our partnership with the Bernard van Leer Foundation. Ascend at the Aspen Institute was launched in 2010 to catalyze conversations and leadership and solutions around a two-generation or whole family approach that focuses on children and parents together. Our goal is to build family economic security, educational success, and health and well-being for all children and the adults in their lives. 2 years ago, recognizing that we had strong alignment in our work and values with the Bernard van Leer Foundation, we joined forces to begin exploring what a whole family framework could mean in low and middle income countries. The report that we are launching today is the result of some of that work, as well as a really exciting group of leaders and partnerships that we've been very honored to get to know over the past 2 years. I would like to now introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to turn the webinar over to Joan Lombardi so that she can share some of the background and context from the Bernard van Leer Foundation's perspective. On this webinar today, we have, as noted, Joan Lombardi, who's an international expert on child development and social policy. She currently serves as Senior Advisor to the Bernard van Leer Foundation on Global Child Development Strategies and to the Buffett Early Childhood Fund on National Initiatives. Following Joan, we will have Ariel Dloomy, who is Co-Executive Director of AJEEC-NISPED. He has extensive experience in the fields of community development and conflict resolution, and for more than a decade has worked with the Arab Bedouin community of the Negev. He's joining us from Israel and is going to discuss some of the wonderful work that they're doing there. Following Ariel is Nicola Grishka. Nicola is currently the Head of International Strategies and Expansion at Gastromotiva. She's responsible for developing strategic partnerships and alliances in order to scale impact and drive sustainable food policies. We're also delighted, and her work primarily that she'll focus on today is in Brazil, although they're also expanding their work in the region. And then finally, but not least at all, we're very excited to welcome Beatrice Ogutu, who is the Director for Africa of Ics. She's responsible for overall organizational management and the development and implementation of ICS's skillful parenting and ending violence programs in Africa. We would like to extend our thanks and appreciation to all of our speakers. And at this point, Joan, I'd love to invite you to share some of your thoughts and the context for this work.
Great. Well, thank you, Lori. And on behalf of the Bernard van Leer Foundation, we thank you and the entire Ascend team at Aspen, the panelists, and all of those listening around the world. The concept behind whole family approaches is simple and straightforward. It's to meet the needs of children and the adults in their lives, namely their parents, together. It's grounded in one of the most basic concepts in child development, an ecological approach that says child development is influenced most directly by families, and families in turn influenced by communities and then the policies that surround them. For example, we know that there is a relationship between income and early childhood development. As this slide shows, across 5 countries, there's a gap between the language skills of children in the lowest quartile and those in the highest wealth quartile. The same thing holds true for maternal education. There is a relationship between the level of the education of the mother and both her health and the development of her children. So what are the implications of this? The implications are that if we want to see to address child development, we have to focus both on programs serving children as well as those serving adults in their lives. Often, services in a community are focused on the child on one end of the continuum and the parent on the other. So we might have a preschool program in one and an adult education or training program on the other. Whole family approaches attempt to address both needs together. This doesn't mean that they have to be done by a single program, but that rather through community partnerships and other linkages that recognize that both ends of the continuum are important. As the next graphic shows, there are 5 components or types of supports that make up the whole family approach or two-generation approach. We start with early childhood development as the core component. Every time a child walks into a preschool, there's a parent right behind them that often needs support, not just with parenting issues, although those are very important, but the whole range of issues that may be facing a family. We like to think of early childhood programs as a gateway to reaching the adults, just like the programs serving parents are great gateways to their children. So early childhood programs provide the opportunity through partnerships to establish social networks of support, post-secondary education and employment, economic assets, and health and well-being of parents. The report that we're going to release today includes some examples that you'll hear and others that we'll be hearing throughout the time of the webinar. We want to thank the programs around the world that contributed to the report and to the advisory group that was convened and provided important input to the process of developing this framework. I will end with a great quote on the front of the report, which is a very important reminder. And the quote says, "The demographics of families in poverty around the world may be diverse, but parents' dreams for their children are similar everywhere. Good health, a good education, economic stability, and a better future." We look forward to your questions and hope that this webinar provides new ideas as you move forward. Thank you.
We'd like to now welcome Ariel Dloomy to share some of their work with the Bedouin population.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you for the Aspen Institute for inviting me to speak today. Good morning for those of you in America, and good afternoon for those of you in my area of the world. AJEEC, the Arab Jewish Center for Equality, Empowerment and Cooperation, is a joint Arab Jewish organization based in the southern part of Israel, what we call the Negev Desert. The Bedouin population, the Arab Bedouin population in the Negev, make 1/3 of the Negev population, and they are the indigenous community of this area. My organization for the past 13 or 14 years have dealt with several early childhood programs based on what we call parents as partners approach, which is, by the way, quite similar to the two-generation or to the whole family approach. Today I would like to highlight one of our programs. I'm going to speak about the El Sanabel catering program. This is a social business. We are talking about a for-profit business that has two bottom lines, the social one and the financial one. And we will see how we can leverage employment opportunities to improve early childhood parenting skills. So how it all began. In 2004, the government of Israel decided that every kid from disadvantaged communities, disadvantaged villages, will receive one hot meal a day. The government is paying for 90% of these meals, and the parents are paying for 10% of the cost of the meal. So the program was in place, funding was in place, different kitchens from the Jewish community started to provide meals for Bedouin kids, and in the end of the day we found out that all the meals are going directly to the garbage bins. Why? Because the Bedouin kids were not used to the taste, were not used to the flavors, and couldn't eat the meal the meals that came from Jewish providers. So as you know, sometimes the best ideas are the most simple ones. And we said, why don't the mothers start and cook for their children? Today we have a state-of-the-art kitchen with 21 wonderful women who are providing every morning 8,000 hot meals for Bedouin kids in the village of Khura and the surrounding Bedouin villages. They are providing healthy and nutritional food for these kids, and the feedback that we get from the community is very, very good. Now, if we move to the next slide, we started to ask ourselves, what can we do more? What can be another added value of this catering enterprise to early childhood matters? And we believe that if women have permanent employment, permanent income, maybe they will be more open for awareness raising on issues of early childhood development. And if we do awareness raising, then people are starting to change their attitudes. However, sometimes we change our attitudes. We really want to lead a change in our community, but we don't have the tools to do it. So also providing parenting skills is part of our program. And this, in the end of the day, should lead to achieving behavioral change in the behavior of the mothers. If you look at the next slide, in terms of the stakeholders, in an ecological approach, we are looking both at children and their parents, but we also look at the surrounding community of the employees and of the children, and we also look at early childhood professionals in the village, and we also look at the municipality, the local municipality that is responsible for all the residents of the village. So what do we do in action? And I'm moving to the next slide. The mothers who work in the catering enterprise have 3 school breaks during the year, in the winter, in the spring, and in the summer. During these school breaks, we ask them to come and study for 4 hours a day. They study a variety of issues, but 50% of the time is dedicated to issues of early childhood development, literacy, family resilience, playing with the kids, and so on and so forth. This you can see on the right top side of the slide. So these mothers go and study, but then we asked ourselves, how can we widen the circles? And we asked each one of the employees to organize also a group of women in her community, in her house, and you can see it on the bottom right side. Each one of these employees, of these mothers, organize a group of 25 to 30 mothers in her house, and we deliver also all these early childhood workshops in the houses. So we have created a wider circle of influence from the catering enterprise, from the employees to the community. Now, if I move to the next slide, we also go to organize early childhood book fairs. We organize fun days for the kids in the village. So the social enterprise, one business in the village, can have a real effect on the lives of the people in the village, which is very, very important. On the next stages, we are going to move and start work with the early childhood professionals in the village, giving them training, and also with the municipality. I'm happy to let you know that this catering enterprise in the Negev has now expanded to another locality in the northern part of Israel, and we are about to open in 2017 the 3rd factory. So we are going to have a larger influence on larger audiences, not just the Bedouin society, but other communities. And we are now exploring how we can duplicate this model also to other industries. I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much again, Laurie. And I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ariel, very much. And as we said, we'll hold questions for the end, and we'll have our 3 presenters continue first, but very much appreciate that overview and the work that you're doing. Nicola, could I invite you to join us now?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Lori, and thank you everyone that's attending our conference. Gastromotiva is a social organization, an NGO. We were started 10 years ago by David Hertz in Brazil. However, nowadays, as Lori mentioned, we're already in Mexico, we're in South Africa now, and we're expanding throughout the region because we see the potential that food and gastronomy has at a larger scale and that can be applied in any society that has marginalized communities, that needs more inclusion, and that has people living in poverty. So basically, Gastromotiva's philosophy is using food and gastronomy as a social change agent. And food, I think everyone can agree, is at the crossroad of so many issues in the world, from health, climate change, economics, social exclusion. So in this particular context, food can be used for better health for children and parents to become productive members of society. Or food can connect the families and their communities around the table. Food actually creates dignity and the opportunity to express oneself. And as Gastromotiva uses food as well to gain skills and get integrated in the labor market. So the one program that I wanted to highlight with everyone today is our main program that focuses on creating young chefs. So Gastromotiva provides free vocational training for young adults that live in social vulnerability and in exclusion. So this may be mainly in the favelas of Rio, Sao Paulo, Salvador, and now Curitiba as well. We've worked as well with immigrants quite a bit because there's an increasing influx in Brazil currently. And we've worked with prisons for the reintegration part. We offer free culinary skills and food education to lift people out of poverty and give them that opportunity that they never had. The reality here in Brazil is quite sad because actually people have a lot of motivation and have skills, but they never had the opportunity like most of us had. So we're trying to be that helping hand. And we basically give a 3 to 4 month course to learn the skills, but as well to have this part of personal development. Because if you've lived in the favelas of Brazil, you don't have self-esteem, you don't have dreams anymore. So it's extremely important to reestablish these dreams again and having our students believe in themselves. So there is obviously the personal development. They become better and more responsible citizens. This is within and outside their homes. They create a healthier relationship to themselves and to food, which is a big issue here in Brazil as well. And in the end, we're training them to become multipliers. So these young adults, as I mentioned, are between 17 and 30. So most of them are already parents, very young parents that don't even know how to really raise a child. So we realized our responsibility to help them as well to create a better environment at home. So we work both with men and women in our program. And whatever they learn in the course, they bring home as well. So we're really trying to bring this relationship to food back to their homes as well. So we try to create better well-being, better food disciplines, to change their tastes. Because obviously a lot of them even feed their children Coca-Cola in a baby bottle. So it's extremely shocking. So how do you move away from these behaviors that are normal in the favelas? So these are all elements that we try to focus on within the course. And then obviously we realized that it's beyond our course. So we started working something called TAC, which is a community action work, where our students go back to their communities. They invite their families, their friends, and neighbors to participate. We organize a day to 2 day workshops, which is really focusing on healthier eating, simple preparation methods, and bringing everyone closer to healthy food behaviors. So there's 2 parts to this program. For one, there's our students that are really peers to these people from the community that we're inviting, and they, for a peer-to-peer approach, teach such simple things like putting color in a plate, how to wash your hands before preparing a meal, what kind of balance between protein and starch does a healthy meal need for your child. And at the same time, we organize loads of games for the kids. So obviously it's bottom up and top down, so that somewhere in the middle we can move forward. And so through something called the Superliga Gastromotiva, which is a superhero day, we get kids to understand the value of vegetables, for example. So they become vegetable heroes, and they're Mr. Broccoli, and they're strong because they have vitamin C, because they're fresh, etc. So for these games, they really understand what it means to eat healthy. And we hope that this actually, triggers these little changes in their day-to-day behaviors. And through a variety of workshops that we continue throughout the year, we try to remind them every time. After this event, our students officially graduate, and we have a vast network of restaurants all over Brazil that then employ our students. So we're creating not only this new relationship to food, this hope, we give the skills, but we then integrate them in the productive labor market. Because as well, with having their first jobs, a lot of our students change their way that they communicate values to their children. So we've seen unbelievable changes in over 2,500 students that we've graduated and their whole families. I think when we talk about experiences and what we've learned over the last 10 years is really what Laurie was mentioning, that we have to focus on the whole family. And this is why we brought in this community action work. We've learned one big thing that I can give away is that it takes time, because somebody that grew up drinking Coca-Cola as a child has different tastes. So it's not only changing behaviors, but it's changing tastes, and that takes time, and it takes continuous work, which is why we as well, with the communities that we work with, we constantly go and do home visits, we talk to the families so that they continue bringing these healthy practices into their day-to-day. For example, some of our students only now, after graduating 6 years ago, have understood it, and now they're integrating it into their day-to-day. Uridea, that's our first student. She's now lost 15 kilos just because she changed these habits, and finally she said to me, now I got it. So it's really one thing that we can't get frustrated about, because it's their reality. And we need to see this opportunity that some of them have gone through the transformation and using them to speak to their peers to undergo the same transformation. I'll stop at this point because I'm sure later on there'll be a few questions, and I'll be happy to elaborate.
Thank you, Nicola. I really appreciate that. And would like at this point to turn this to Beatrice to share with us the work they're doing in Africa.
Thank you, Laurie and Aspen, for inviting us for this meeting, and thank you all who are attending the webinar session today. ICS is a development organization working in rural areas of Africa together with families, communities to create safe and nurturing environments for children. Over 20 years now, we have worked in Eastern Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. And the very core of our work is centered around skillful parenting and ending violence against children. And because we work in rural communities in East Africa, all our programs are embedded in well-targeted economic empowerment and agribusiness programs, because in our context, poverty still remains a big concern, and it's a main stressor in the parenting process, and thereby compromising the well-being of children in the areas where we work. Our target communities are mainly smallholder farmers, and therefore the integration of agribusiness models works best in our context. From 4 years ago, I want to share with you a program that we have done in Kenya and Tanzania that uses a whole family approach to improve the well-being of vulnerable children, youth, and their parents. We have implemented economic strengthening program that focuses on agribusiness, working together with the social enterprises that ICS set up to be able to build the economic knowledge and empower families to be able to address their income challenges and food security concerns. In our experience, sustainable increase in income together with a special attention to parenting knowledge and skills has been able to bring major changes in family functioning and child well-being at household level. We look at outputs at 2 levels, both for parental well-being and child well-being, and our approach using the social enterprises that we work with, mainly AJEEC and AJEEC, has been able and very instrumental in terms of training smallholder farmers on modern agronomic practices. And they get additional services from government like traction to improve land preparation. They also get input credit for certified seeds, for fertilizer, so that they can be able to improve productivity within their small holding acreage of land in the areas where they work. And then we also have other social enterprises that provide a ready and transparent market for their produce, because in our context, as much as productivity increased within the acreage that most of the smallholder communities were having, market was still a big challenge because of the exploitation by middlemen or a glut in the market. So some of the social enterprises that have been set by ourselves and others are ready to provide that ready market for their produce. And at the same time, looking at the products and services they're able to get, we have been able to conduct quite a number of assessments in Kenya and in Tanzania, and we have seen there's been a substantial increase in the yield and the income of smallholder farmers in the areas where we work. At the same time, the smallholder communities go through a skillful parenting program, which is a 12-week group-based parenting program that was designed and evaluated in Kenya and in Tanzania through the experience and the expertise of quite a number of stakeholders that we interacted with at community level, at regional level, and at government level. The program consists of 7 modules, and it was designed to increase the parental competence, well-being, and social support, so that we can be able to ensure that all the children under the smallholder farmer communities where we are targeting are able to reach their full potential. The program is delivered through local facilitators who were trained and certified by ICS. And some of these facilitators come from community-based organizations, the government social workforce, the community health workforce, but they are taken through a rigorous training and then certified and then allocated parent peer groups for them to be able to train. The parents that we work with are from different categories, ranging from single parents, polygamous families, teenagers with parenting responsibilities, grandparents who are taking care of their grandchildren as well. And they have the range of children, all ranges of children from 0 to 18. For the 12 sessions, they come together on a weekly basis to gain knowledge and skills, but more importantly, reflect on their roles, parenting style, and share their daily parenting experiences and dilemma. The parent peer groups are made up of 18 to 24 parents, and together with the facilitators, they're able to reflect on the 7 modules, which are family relationships. We talk about roles and responsibilities of a skillful parent. And here we stress a lot the fact that parenting is not only related to basic needs provision, but we also have to look at other softer issues and softer sides of parenting, which many a times, because our parents are busy and struggling to put food on the table, they might not give special attention to. And that second module is where we also stress the importance of early childhood care and development. The third module is on self-esteem and self-care, looking at parents being able to take care of themselves very well, and also to build confidence in their parenting skills, and at the same time them being able to get the skills to build the self-esteem in their children. We also look at values and discipline. We look at issues of communication. We address issues of child protection in terms of early warning signs of abuse and neglect, how those can be prevented, and in the event that they do happen, what parents need to do and where they need to seek support on. We also have a module on family budgeting, where we look at, with increased income at household level, in our context, it doesn't always guarantee the well-being of children. So the family budgeting module comes in to support parents to safely talk about money issues at household level, plan for the priorities of the household, plan for the well-being of their children and the services that they need to access, and at the same time, how they can plan for emergencies. And then we have additional modules on teenagers and parenting and on fatherhood specifically. Our parent peer groups are made up of both men and women, but we do have deliberate sessions where we do target men specifically on issues of fatherhood and how they need to be more engaged and involved in the household setting. All the programs are complemented by community awareness raising events, and we use these opportunities to connect the parent peer groups to other basic services like health, birth registration, nutrition, and education in the communities where we work. Some of the lessons that we have quickly learned from our approach is that because it's a whole family approach, and families in our context are really complex and they have multiple needs, you do not need to struggle to provide all the services as an organization. As ICS, we work together with government, other civil society organizations to be able to provide and link these parent peer groups to other basic and specialized services that they may need. For this program to quickly gain a lot of attention and for most parents to participate for the 12 sessions together with the agribusiness component, we have invested in some quick wins. Part of the biggest problem in the families where we intervene is the issue of communication. So when both spouses are not in good terms and are not able to communicate, you cannot be able to realize the results that we intend to achieve in terms of family well-being. So we have stressed a lot on the importance of communications, and simple practices such as having joint family meetings, having sessions where parents and children interact with each other have yielded some of the greatest benefits that have motivated the parents to continue within these programs. And we have at this moment almost 80% retention in all the programs that we have implemented in the region. And it's because of the small quick wins that they quickly see this has resolved the issue that was at family level. The other lesson that we quickly pick, we work a lot, our programs are context specific, and we rely a lot on the expertise of the parents because they have also have had good practices that they have implemented over the years to raise their children. So our approach starts with what has worked best in the particular context and take those forward and then add new knowledge and skills so that they can be able to manage the parenting challenges and dilemma as they move forward. The other part that we have worked well is the use and working together with the local facilitators who understand the context very well and who can adapt the modules to be able to reflect the daily experiences of parents as they share within their parent peer groups. So briefly, that is what I can share at the moment. But I look forward to questions so that I can be able to elaborate more. Thank you very much for the session.
Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you all of our presenters. We have a few questions coming in via the chat option here, but if anyone else has a question, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button on your webinar, and we will unmute you to ask your question. If you have any problems with audio, you can also type it in. So I'd like to start with a question for Joan Lombardi, and then I'm going to follow with one that came in while you all were talking. Joan, when you are thinking about, when you have an early childhood program, how do you go from there to a whole family approach?
Well, thanks, Lori, for that question. I want to, before I get to the answer to that question, I want to reflect with those on the phone about the examples that we heard. In most cases, they're not the traditional early childhood programs that we think of. The idea of integrating parenting and other early childhood supports into programs like training of cooks or agribusiness is a new idea. But I think building off those platforms is so critical to our ability to scale the services that we're after and provide the supports, the early childhood supports that we know are so important. Going back to early childhood programs, whether they be preschool programs or any other early childhood development program, I think the first step has to be for us to think about how we're promoting family engagement in the program itself. How are we using parents as volunteers? How are we empowering them? How are we providing them with opportunities to network with other family members and to provide those supports that we know often break the isolation that's so often facing families? And how are we also encouraging parents to continue their own education? So we have to first start with making sure that we have a very strong parent engagement, parent support program within the early childhood centers that we're running, and that become a core element of quality. It's often the forgotten element of a quality program. Beyond that, I think we have to look in our communities and begin to think about where are the adult serving agencies and how can we connect with them, whether they're training programs or some of the kinds of businesses that we heard from the example. So, you know, in a nutshell, I think to begin to move out to a whole family approach, we have to start with what we're doing with the children and their parents in our program, and then reach out beyond that to the community.
Thank you, Joan, very much. And that actually fits very nicely with a question that has also just come in. And that question, I think, is someone that it's a question that could go to anyone on the line, any of our panelists. And it is that it appears from these examples that parental employment is key to children's well-being. What is the theory of change for this? It would be important to understand the complex web of factors that relate, because in many cases, it's not always possible to guarantee employment. So is the key factor increased income, available time, parental engagement, support systems, or sense of efficacy? And this may be a question that several of you might want to respond to.
So I'll jump in.
Laurie.
This is,
yeah?
Sorry. Good timing. Please, Beatrice, go ahead.
Thank you. I will give the experience in Africa. Well, our farming families in Africa often experience multiple vulnerabilities and risk factors that have been passed from one generation to the other. Poverty is just one of them, but we have issues of harsh or poor parenting, traditional harmful practices such as early marriages, traditional FGM, and we have also a lot of gender inequality in our context. So for us, a whole family approach is necessary to address these risk factors in a sustainable way. Well, we have done agribusiness and skillful parenting. Each in isolation has not been able to work for us well. So for example, economic strengthening would only increase a family's income, but women and children in our context often do not benefit from unequal power balances and decision making within the family. So if we do combine it with skillful parenting, parents then have the ability, including the mothers, to feel confident and actually change certain practices within their family. But what is important for us, and that has been very key in the success of this program, is the parenting program first focuses on parental well-being and health before we start addressing issues of child well-being. So issues of relationships within the marriage itself, issues of self-esteem and self-care, issues of communication, those are first addressed. And when the parent is confident and comfortable, it's when now we start talking about issues of agribusiness and issues related to child development and well-being. So for us, the combination is very important and has been able to yield results, which has been able to address the risk factors, the multiple risk factors that I mentioned: poverty, harsh parenting, harmful practices, gender inequality, and some of the other factors that my colleagues have also, my panelists have also mentioned before.
So what I'm hearing is that even before you can get to the issues of parenting, you have to address the issues that are affecting their ability to parent.
Exactly.
And I think that that's often a forgotten step in the process. We design parenting programs assuming we're going to provide parents with information, but there has to be a readiness to process and use that information, and their own family conditions are critical to that. I think that's the essence of the theory of change behind whole family approaches.
Yeah.
I think Just Nicola from Brazil. Just it goes along the same lines what you both just mentioned. So happy parents fulfilling their own dreams, building confidence and self-esteem will only reflect positively of whatever happens at home. Like you were mentioned, Beatrice, on the relationships within the family, about the values that they pass down. So it sort of sets the stage, and obviously having a stable income will get them less worried, so there is less tensions within the household, and that's when you can start working on other areas. Through our course, we also give a class on citizenship and on teamwork and on interaction with society. So all these things that they will then bring to the workplace as well also get reflected very positively within their own households.
Thank you, Nicola. Ariel, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I think, and I very much second what Beatrice said, that we really have to understand what is the context in which our programs operate. In many cases, we assume that if we provide early childhood services, if we open kindergartens or daycares, then the mothers will be free to send their kids to these services and start working. Now, in many of these cases, in poor communities, mothers are living in such conditions that they're not even allowed in traditional communities to travel outside their community, that sometimes the husband will not allow them to be employed. And then we have to think in a holistic way and combine all the programs such as vocational training, empowerment, and so on, that will allow women to really, get a job. And in fact, we have seen that in this type of programs, over a course of 5 to 6 years, we have managed to get to a situation where 40% of the mothers start to study or get employment.
And can I ask a follow-up question to that, Ariel? Is childcare then an issue for those parents, and how do you address that?
It's an interesting question because in some of the communities where we started working, not all the parents thought that they need to send their kids, for example, to a daycare. They didn't understand at the beginning the need. So in a way, we have to first create the need, create awareness to the importance. And we have seen that it's a process that takes time. Before you open, for example, an early childhood center, in a community that we work with, in many cases unrecognized communities, shanty towns, first you have to run groups of mothers, have a dialogue with the community, and create the need. And also use a peer teaching, having people from the community convincing parents. And we have seen in one of the cases, it was really interesting, and also involved the husbands. On the first year, all of our early childhood centers are usually not full. We have 15 kids in each one of these centers, and usually we have 8 to 9 on the first year. On the second year, they are full, and we even have overbooking. Why? Because we see that parents go and convince each other, and sometimes they take their kids to their neighbors and show him that his kids know how to count until 100 or something like that, and then they understand the importance of having an early childhood services.
And Ariel, this is Lori. One last follow-up to that as well. You spoke earlier, and I assume this is part of that theory of change that you have about wider circles of influence and how you work with your employees to hold events and discussions in their homes. Do you find that from a peer-to-peer perspective, how effective has that been for you?
We are actually right now evaluating the success of this program, but once it's a peer-to-peer teaching, then it's much easier to get over all kinds of barriers. Having someone external to the community coming, giving workshops and speak about early childhood matters, it doesn't usually work. And if you have someone from the community, and sometimes we combine someone from the community and someone from the outside coming together, then it really, really works. And we always have to think how we combine traditional knowledge of the community on early childhood matters because community have lots of knowledge, usually the grandmothers, they have huge knowledge, but we have to think how we combine this traditional knowledge with modern theories on early childhood matters, and never neglect each one of them.
Thank you. And I think that resonates as well with part of what Beatrice was saying about the importance of the culture and the context. And I'd like to turn now to Nicola, and related to that as well, you talked about how some of this you see as very important, and how you encourage people to bring what they're learning in your courses home. How specifically do you encourage that, and do you have any ways that you can follow up to see how well that is translating into the family? That may be a difficult question, but would love to hear your thoughts.
So, I mean, it's a natural process in a sense. So if you for the first time actually see the potential of a vegetable, you taste it, the way of preparing something, you naturally want to bring it home. So actually, I was speaking to one of our students last week, and I asked him pretty much the same question. And he said, I just wanted to share, I was excited about it. And it was hard when, you know, like Ariel was saying, there's some traditions as well within their household. So, for example, his mother was like, no, that doesn't make sense. So, you know, you need to break these barriers. But the student was so excited that he, in the end, got more vegetables to the table, for example. So I think we encourage it, but it happens in a rather natural way. It's just that they've never been exposed to it. So they never knew that it's bad to feed Coca-Cola to the child, or that we need to have color in the plate, or these very basic things. So how do we track it? We currently don't. We just do random picks where we usually get invited home by some of the students, and we see and we talk about what they've learned, how they passed it on. They naturally, I think, all of them have been integrating it from all our conversations.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that makes sense. And even when you started to talk about it, you know, interacting with the vegetable, peeling it, preparing it, gives you a whole different feel for how that could be included in your life. And speaking of some of the resistance you might find, do you, even within the course itself, do you encounter some cultural resistance, or do you find that once they've been encouraged and they're in the environment that they leave some of that behind?
It, again, as I mentioned before, it takes a lot of time. So it's behavioral changes, behavioral consumption changes, and it's also taste changes. Because if you grew up with very sweet dishes all your life, then out of a sudden moving away from sugar takes a lot of time. So again, talking about the same student I was talking to last week, he was saying, okay, I started drinking my coffee with less sugar, and I want to get to not having any sugar in my coffee. And so it's about encouraging that they change these behaviors. Some of them, obviously, there's a big resistance, just because for them as well, having a Coca-Cola, I'm coming back to that example, has status. So they know that rich people have access to these very expensive drinks, such as Coca-Cola, and I want it. The moment I have a bit of money, that's what I want. So as well, breaking, you know, these preconceptions about what's good for you and what is, you know, should be an aspiration for you. But I think over the course of 3 to 4 months, they get the initial sort of taste out of how they should behave and how they should consume and their relationship to food, but it takes much longer.
Mm-hmm. No, which makes a lot of sense for all the literature. And I'm at this point just quickly going to go to a couple of more questions that have come in via the question function. One is for both Nicola and Ariel, and they're asking what the base funding source was to launch your programs.
So in our case, we're completely dependent on donations, actually. So we have foundations that support us, that support specific programs that we run. We have companies that got engaged, or individuals. We used to, as a matter of fact, be based on social business. So we had a catering that would then fund parts of the trainings. However, this concept of social business 10 years ago in Brazil wasn't well seen, and people were confused and they didn't understand, well, if you have a business, why would I donate? So we took the decision back then to drop the catering, which is actually now run by one of our students. But we came to the point now, 10 years later, that we're rethinking currently how to bring in a social business arm, which may range from paid workshops, experiences. We just opened a social restaurant, which will be a source of income, different product lines. So it should be sort of a mixed model for the future in terms of funding.
Okay, thank you.
In our case, 60% come from philanthropy and 40% is based on loans. That was on the first and second factories. On the third factory that we are going to open next year, hopefully we will have enough revenues to provide for 50% of the establishment of the factory.
Thank you. And I imagine, I mean, sustainability is always a really important question. So that trajectory has probably been a difficult one to build, but shows a lot of potential for the future of your work and the expansion.
Absolutely. If I may just add one thing that I didn't mention at the beginning, sorry, just since we're talking about this. Why do we require less funds than typically organizations that are building schools? We are as well based on a model where we cooperate with universities. So all our programs until now are run on university campuses, because here in Brazil and in Latin America, actually, the gastronomic courses are run in the mornings at the universities, and the kitchens and their classrooms stand empty throughout the afternoons. So in each city that we operate, we have an alliance with a local university where we use their campus in order to give our classes, which for one, obviously, the infrastructure is a huge cost. And on the other side, it's an inspirational factor for the students as well, because they say, I'm in Unisum, one of the greatest universities. So it gives them status and motivation as well.
That's a great point. Thank you. We have another question that's related to the policy implications of a whole family approach and what the implications are for policymakers and governments. And Joan, this one is addressed specifically to you, although I welcome others to intervene as well. But Joan, the question is, are there any specific cases or of a successful public sector approach using whole family principles?
Well, I'll reflect first on my own country, and that is the Head Start program in the United States is based on the principle of addressing the needs of families as you address the needs of children, comprehensive services that includes health, social networks of support, and social services, family services, and education in a holistic way. But I think there's several others. If you look at Chile Crece Contigo in Latin America, which I believe is in the report, I think there are public policies that are beginning to think this way and address the needs of children and adults together, but we have a long way to go. I think from an early childhood perspective, the first step is designing programs that acknowledge that parents are important and that parent involvement, parent engagement is central to delivering a quality program and providing the kind of supports that you need to deliver that, which includes people in programs that work directly with families as well as working directly with children.
Thank you, Joan. Would anyone else like to weigh in on that question?
Let me give our experiences in Kenya. Over the last 2 years, we have worked at a regional level within the country to try and influence regional level governments to adopt a whole family approach. We made baby steps there. And at the moment, in terms of designing comprehensive family services at regional government level, that is already happening. And because we had a tested and documented and costed model, because many a times what we lack in our policy discourse is models that can be replicated, that we can be able to take to scale. So in the absence of this, even convincing our public service counterparts to be able to plan and think through this becomes very difficult. But we have started at local government level, regional local government level, as we take the discussions forward at national level. And we're already seeing over the last 2 years, one regional government in Western Kenya has been able to plan for and budget for the Scale for Parenting program in combination with agribusiness. And we aim to take that forward further within the local government as we build our lessons towards our national level lobby efforts.
Thank you for that. I had not heard about that work, so we'll be excited actually to follow up with you and hear a little bit more. And Beatrice, while you're speaking, I had another question for you, which is that you were talking about parent peer groups, and in a lot of the work that we have both seen and supported, the importance of that parental connection and how parents support themselves, support each other, provide information, provide encouragement, act as accountability methods for each other has been hugely important in the success of whole family programs. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you have turned to a peer approach.
Our decision to go to the parent peer approach was mainly because our model is mainly based on reflection. There's quite a lot of knowledge and skills within the parents because they practiced this over the years. But what they lacked was a platform for sharing and reflection. And therefore, we were able, through the smallholder farmer communities, to bring parents together to start reflecting on their roles as parents. In our context, well, majority of the parents plan for the wedding, but not the marriage thereafter. And therefore, when this opportunity presented themselves, we did realize that there was a need and there was a yearning within the parents to just come and share and hear from each other how they are handling marriage, but also how that is affecting their parenting process. So because the first module is basically focusing on family relationships, and that is where most of the challenges stemmed from, the majority of them were able to continuously attend the sessions because we were hitting home where the problem was, where they were experiencing the most problems and challenges. And for us, the parent peer group approach was important. While in the initial stages, majority of the women were the participants, by the third session, most of the men started joining in. And mainly because they said they saw changes in their wives, and out of curiosity, they wanted to find out what is it exactly that their wives are going through. What are they reflecting on? What new knowledge are they getting? Because there's more peace at home. Very simple issues like, nowadays I come home and she's able to greet me at the door and she doesn't shout at me anymore. And she asks me to sit down so that we can discuss. She prepares food on time for the family and she asks us to talk, in a safe way. Very basic things started encouraging men to attend the sessions out of curiosity based on the changes they had seen in their wives. And for us, because in the village setting, the other significant others like mother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, they have a very significant role in, in the parenting process. So your mother-in-law would be very instrumental in terms of telling you how to bring up your children, but they were not part of the parent peer groups. But that made them be able to be curious enough and join. And as the sessions progressed, we saw a growth and interest in, grandparents wanting to join in, mother-in-law wanting to join in, parents, even polygamous families. We have situations where a man would come with their 3 wives, but in the initial stages, only 1 wife would come, and then encourage the man to come, and the man would invite additional, the 2 additional wives to come. So it is in the discussions that, hit home where the problem is hardest within their communities, and that within their marriages, and that explains for us the reason why they keep on coming for the parent peer group reflections. And even beyond the 7 modules we talk about, the parent peer groups are continuing with these discussions because there are many more issues beyond the 7 topics that we address with them that they would want to take forward. One, for example, is sexual and reproductive health, how to talk about those issues with their teenage children. They're also looking at issues of nutrition now beyond the 7 modules, and we are linking them to other service providers who can be able to facilitate discussions based on the topics that they identify for themselves.
Thank you, Beatrice, very much, and I appreciate that perspective. I'm realizing that we are coming to the end of our time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's commitments. Thank you all very much. And Joan, I would like to give you the last word, but I would like to thank all of our presenters for their contributions, for your responses, for your questions, and most importantly, for the work you do every day.
Well, I also want to thank everybody. And, you know, I think this is a new way of thinking. I just want to summarize 3 main points that came out. One, the importance of listening to parents and getting them involved peer-to-peer. I think our colleague from ICS gave us a great example of that. Second, the importance of partnerships. No one program can do it alone. We have to look around our community and think of the various platforms that we can use. And I think that may be the best way to start a policy dialogue at the same time. And finally, that, you know, we're hoping these kinds of efforts have impacts on child development, but we have to continue to do evaluations and research to make sure that this approach is giving us the results that we're after, which is healthy, strong children and healthy, strong families. So with that, I hope you share the report with others, and I thank Ascend at Aspen Institute for helping us get these important messages out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joan. Thank you all. The report will be up online within the hour, but we will also be sending an email with a link to both the PowerPoint presentation, the recording of the webinar, and the report itself. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Ascend, and for the rest of the time. Thank you.
Thank you.